Hi everyone, how's it going? Today's video is the longest I've ever made by a long stretch, clocking in at just under 36 minutes, so make sure you've got your popcorn at the ready and settle in. Name prior to transformation unknown. Post-transformation known as the Doctor, sometimes stylized with an alternative spelling to differentiate here from the people who refer to themselves or are referred to by others as the Doctor. Post-human, presenting as a dragon arthropod amalgam. Male prior to ascending, hermaphroditic after ascending. Functionally a hermaphrodite referred to as she or here as an ascendant or he or him as a mortal. Indeterminate, could be centuries or eons, but physically appears to be in here early 20s. 2 meters or 6 foot 5 inches and 100 kilograms stroke 220 pounds. However, actual mass and density are often absurd by conventional expectations. The Doctor's gravitational pull is suppressed. Not officially known. Not officially known. Not officially known. The world of Doc's origin is comparable to ours today, with a diverse geopolitical body with numerous diplomatic conflicts and social stagnation in the developed world. The setting is post-cyberpunk overall, experiencing a mix of social reunification and polarization. The Doctor exists outside of reality and creates a projection of hirself within it, which she uses to interact with the world and process it, piece by piece, to build an idealized version of it in the abstract world. She can use this projection to devastating effect, but often presents herself in a more benign way. The Doctor often uses far weaker manifestations than the one which appears in the images towards the end of this video. The specifics of Doc's infanthood are entirely speculative, as no official records exist. Some records say that Doc was especially curious about his surroundings and parents, and also that he may have displayed abnormal quirks at this age. But again, this is unverified and the nature of the quirks are unspecified. The Doctor is not known to be argumentative, so it is generally assumed that he was not an argumentative child, and this may have been the first red flag that something was different about Doc. Toddlerhood is the period of time in which a person begins to develop a separate sense of self from their mother, along with an awareness of their ability to make choices. Arguing with mother is an effective way for a toddler to differentiate himself from her, while also exercising the concept of free will. Doc might not have done that. Whether or not he felt this fundamental need to differentiate himself from his mother, Doc loved having choices for the first time. Control was very important to him and became a central theme in his life. With control being so important to him, Doc ironically faced a choice. Did he want to become a big picture thinker with the vision to make sweeping changes to his world, small as it was at that age, being just his home and perhaps preschool? Or did he want to be details orientated and dedicate himself to keeping track of every tiny detail? Eager to reap the benefits of both, influence and knowledge, he chose both at some point in his life. However, given his still very young but developing brain, juggling the two in his early childhood would have meant resorting to intuition rather than rationality most of the time. Given his dedication to switching between these two observational styles, Doc became good at both, and in time developed the necessary mental agility. In later years, people who had the nous to notice this would often be impressed. This in turn might have shaped the core of Doc's attitude towards doubt, particularly self-doubt. Doubt has the power to cow people for entire lifetimes, but only because of the real or imagined potential of an individual to miss crucial information. The story is similar for shame. Doc seemed determined not to miss any detail, and for a bright toddler this would not in itself be unusual. The difference for this age would have been his focus. It is believed that he wanted to see that everything was present, or that the task would be completed properly, or that he could prove his powers of recall. Whatever the details Doc was focused on were for, he was likely more interested in their optimal usage than in his own performance in relation to them. With all of this in mind, Doc was likely a possessive toddler, although not in any malign way. He may have liked to gather all the knowledge he could, and hold on to it by remembering it. For him, even if this passion began at a young age, knowledge was precious, like gold, and elusive. Information forgotten was like a coin dropped down a drain. The import of this may or may not have been noticed by his parents. Toddlers often parrot back things they have learned, and this memorization of information, even seemingly inconsequential information, may have simply been seen as this if it developed during this period. As Doc grew from a toddler to a small child, he most likely felt a coming together of his body and mind. His body became stronger and more energetic, and this felt good in its own right, but more importantly for Doc in particular, his body became a more useful tool. This was important because his mind shifted into a new gear too. He had most likely established his attitude at this point towards holding on and letting go, his relationships with the powerful people in his life, i.e. his parents and preschool teachers, his own level of control, which he may well have felt confident about since he may not have locked proverbial horns with his parents as much as most toddlers in the previous stage of his life. And he began to have new experiences. The start of learning at school, time-structured days, other children with whom he needed to be able to happily coexist, and unfamiliar adults in the form of teachers. This seemed like a drastic expansion in Doc's world, and with it, he saw new challenges and, most likely, new opportunities. How ambitious his parents were on his behalf is unknown, but Doc himself was probably either ambitious himself, or felt confident enough to meet his parents' expectations for him. Doc's ambition and his focus on achieving said ambition at the expense of any self-consciousness about his ability to live up to it likely equaled a potent self-confidence, perhaps even stretching back to his 3-year-old self. He liked to show off his capability in front of an audience. At this early stage in life, Doc's ambitions were probably relatively mundane. To be at the top of the class, or bigger dreams about growing up to become a doctor or astronaut perhaps. Those close to the Doctor in the current day believe that here ambition may have risen to the point of becoming the annexation or usurping of physical existence itself. It is believed by those who know enough about the Doctor that C will achieve this in time, unless any being on a similar level of power to the Doctor, or any godlike figure C may be accountable to, decides to intervene. Despite Doc being a presumably energetic child, many believe that he was not particularly interested in play in the truest sense of the word. For him, self-improvement to turn himself into a useful tool in the acquisition of his ambitions was likely more important. At this early stage in his life, it is likely that his efforts to this effect looked like play, hunting and investigating bugs, reading, building things with sticks, rocks and leaves, etc. It is likely that he also enjoyed math. Doc's attitude towards achievement eventually became voracious. However, he did like to acknowledge those achievements. It would have been easy for him to take them for granted, to disregard them and continue on to the next task, but he was probably not averse to showing his achievements to the grown-ups, and perhaps to show off a little to the other children. Doc reached his 7th birthday and at around that time graduated to this life stage. He, along with his classmates, found that school became more focused. Some of his classmates resented this and yearned to continue to enjoy the spontaneity they had so far enjoyed in life, but probably not Doc. This new focus, even pressure to become knowledgeable and to be asked to demonstrate that knowledge, could have been manna to Doc. His schoolwork included projects to be completed, and he most likely took pride and joy in their completion. Similarly, he probably started to be given tasks to complete at home to help with the smooth running of the household. Housework, straightforward food preparation, and similar tasks. Whenever Doc had no chores or projects to perform, he was probably able to relax. And this may have thrown his parents off from seeing any, or the true depth of, Doc's abnormalities, assuming he had them in this stage of his life. Given that the tasks Doc was expected to perform were more demanding, and the further fact that he was expected to cooperate with other children to meet these expectations, Doc may have felt a great sense of achievement when he did so, not least because he felt that he had successfully harnessed other children to achieve the goal. If he felt that sense of achievement, then he would have certainly wanted to be seen. On the occasion he failed, he may have likely preferred to go unnoticed, at least until he had worked out what he had overlooked or done wrong and could practice getting it right. Doc's establishment of a self-confident attitude, possibly as far back as his toddlerhood, helped him to manage these feelings of failure without shame. He simply understood that there was no benefit, and indeed perhaps some detriment, in being seen by the grown-ups while failing, and sought to minimize the impact of that. He didn't always do this, however. One very strange quirk that Doc developed as he started working on more difficult tasks was a sense of self-deprecation expressed as humor. He could easily have become arrogant about his successes, and some schoolmates and teachers could indeed have seen him as arrogant. But if Doc believed he might fail in a task and couldn't avoid being seen as responsible, in full or in part, for the failure, he would make jokes at his own expense. This helped to endear some people to him, but it made for a strange quality combined with his high levels of self-confidence. To say that he was a cooperative child may be a stretch of the definition. Just as Doc does in the present day, it is believed that he liked to harness the time, effort, and expertise of others, so his cooperation with others may be better described as coordination. Other children generally found that it was better to cooperate with Doc, as he already had ideas about what he wanted to do. They could either cooperate with him, or he would disregard them as irrelevant to the fulfillment of his goals. Given the fact that he was most likely still a child at this time, sometimes he wouldn't necessarily use power to overcome others' obstructiveness, so instead he learned to subvert it. This skill set, whether seen as leadership skills, charisma, manipulation, or any combination of those three, became Doc's defining quality as he grew older. Doc revised his ambitions from the childish ones of his 3 to 6-year-old self and took an interest in becoming an inventor. Even at this stage, it is believed that Doc may have felt deeply dissatisfied with the state of the culture, perhaps even the global culture, of the world in which he was growing up, and this may have provided him with extra motivation to earnestly begin or continue with his drive to self-improve. Doc entered his teenage years. Teenagers generally find themselves re-experiencing the toddler's need to differentiate themselves from the adults who have raised them, and to experiment with their autonomy in the world beyond, albeit on a larger scale. As ever, this probably worked out rather differently for Doc. Most speculators agree that he funneled his expression of adolescent defiance into a determination to ensure that any interactions he had with other people benefited himself in the fulfillment of his goals, both short and long term. Given that he most likely had always liked to celebrate his achievements, this overall earned him a niche in the social system of teenagers in which he found himself. He is believed to have been proactive about schoolwork, which some of his peers would have appreciated more than others, and he took leadership in completing it. Again, some would have liked his natural talent for leadership more than others, as every human alive, in Doc's time and in ours, holds people in positions of leadership in unique esteem. In short, some of Doc's peers would have liked him taking leadership, some would have resented it, and some would have seen it as a challenge to be overcome. If anyone tried contradicting or obstructing him, he would likely either subvert or openly defy them. Regardless of how much one believes he utilized it, Doc realized that the power he wielded in society was increasing, or had the potential to increase, as he changed from a child to an adult. However, he also realized that older teenagers and young adults still have limited influence in the eyes of others. So it is believed that during his adolescence, Doc learned to present himself in particular ways to maximize his ability to influence others. Either to be very nuanced in the way he communicated, or to abstract or twist the communication of a message. In later years, he could even be completely inscrutable when he chose to be. By controlling the flow of information like this, he gained a measure of power over others. However, Doc's desire to influence his world, with a view to improving it for the better, for he almost certainly would have developed an interest in the concept of optimization by now, may have led to him revising his ambitions once again. He strove to prepare himself to become a world leader, which, as he saw it, would grant him the executive power to make the decisions necessary to optimize his country, and even the wider world. His previous ambition to be an inventor did not disappear entirely. He was becoming very proficient at thinking about problems creatively, and he still wanted to use this talent. But in addition to providing solutions, he was also interested in having the power to impose them. Adolescents experience neurological changes that can leave them feeling unhinged, especially during the age of 12 to 15. It is likely that Doc experienced these changes too. However, he almost surely would have developed ways of keeping his world feeling familiar. Reading, studying, and completed prescribed work from school. Social life was most likely not important to him beyond the idea of harnessing others to complete aims and goals, so he derived relatively little sense of continuity from spending time with his schoolmates. Many adolescents feel a need to appoint an adversary, an oversimplified version of the values they dislike. Doc's primary adversary became inefficiency, or something similar to it, a far more abstract focus for his disdain than those of most of his classmates. However, to spend time disdaining inefficiency would have been in itself inefficient, so he almost certainly didn't waste time on that. Instead, whenever the concept of inefficiency particularly irritated him, he would work on becoming, or making his world, more efficient. It is very likely that he took a dislike to people whose goals were badly aligned with his own, i.e., those who wished to waste time and resources, or those who specifically sought to damage or discontinue systems that worked well. And this gave him an us and them mentality. On the flip side of this particular coin, Doc may have felt particularly pleased to work with those of his schoolmates who took their work more seriously. Whether he considered them his in-group or not is down to speculation, but he would certainly have felt more welcoming towards them, regardless of how he expressed that in the moment. Doc may have surely been academically brilliant, but given the sheer scope of his focus and his eventual success, it seems reasonable to speculate that he had role models. If so, they are likely to have been teachers, especially the ones he considered to be diligent, goal-orientated, and exceptional in their fields. There is no record of any romantic or sexual partners that Doc may have had at this time, but it seems unlikely considering his natural tendency to focus on academia and the various skills that leadership entails. Very little exists in the way of records of Doc's educational path, including everything from the age of 18 and upward, except for his nickname. Doc, short for the Doctor, is widely accepted to indicate his education and his focus as an inventor, in particular in his interest in the advancement of humanity, with the ideal culmination of his studies being post-humanism. Doc became an authoritarian and a perfectionist. He already had very little time for personal flaws, or at the very least self-doubt, and he saw it as unacceptable in other people. During some part of his adulthood, he began to work in earnest towards becoming a world leader. However, it is statistically unlikely that he achieved this before the age of 40. At some time, Doc is known to have married. Cultural norms suggest that he did this during this stage of his life, which takes place between the ages of approximately 18 to 40. He also had children, and although it is tempting to once again claim that cultural norms suggest that this happened during this life stage, it is harder to be certain. Doc used youth-restoring technologies to maintain his vigor. He may also have used cognitive enhancement technology to make him a more intelligent and placid individual. When Doc became a world leader, it was within a climate in which people were particularly suggestible to charisma. He was already well versed in exuding charisma, so he used this skill to become a popular figure and found his way to the top spot. While some believe that Doc was elected, as is customary in most of the developed world in both our world and his, those closer to Doc believed that he founded his own country and became its self-appointed dictator, which would align with his controlling perfectionist nature as opposed to having to answer to individuals whom he may have considered his inferiors. Doc has always been known for his passion and drive to optimize, and to take a prominent role in bringing optimization to bear. Although Doc had children, he almost certainly continued to contribute himself rather than easing up on his responsibilities. How supportive of his children he was, and what they wanted, is unknown. For most individuals, this life stage would involve the summing up of the individual's life overall, and they would make a personal appraisal of whether they had lived it well, squandered it, or whether they had any regrets. Doc, however, began a new life. At no younger than the age of 70, and using technology designed by himself, he self-evolved into a post-human being and eventually even became capable of existing outside of the multiverse and projecting an image of himself within it. As part of Here Ascension, C discarded Here masculinity and became a hermaphrodite, as C considered binary sexes to be an imperfection, or worse, an inefficiency, that C preferred to discard. Those informed enough about the nature of the Doctor know that a sufficiently powerful entity could kill Here and truly end Here life. However, this would require the Doctor forswearing Here vows to the entity at the top of the hierarchy. The Doctor will probably never do this. The Doctor has an extra existential status and an extremely deep and broad capacity for perception that allows Here a flawless ability to plan and act. However, now that C has this much power, Here morality of the ends justify the means, with Here primary goal being the optimization of the multiverse, can have devastating consequences for countless people, along with the biodiversity of innumerable planets. In a manner of speaking, the Doctor died when C ascended, so the idea of the end of Here life being the end of Here capacity to remain self-aware and influence existence is irrelevant. As such, what follows is a description of all that has been said previously. The Doctor's position on trust and confidence, Here ability to bring Here own will to bear and influence the multiverse, Here ambitions, and Here capacity to be productive and to cooperate with others. The Doctor's position of power and its usage remain unchanged. C trusts herself to fulfill Here goals, and Here goal is to usurp total control of the omniverse, one multiverse at a time. To not be in control, that is, for the variables of the world and its administration to be in the hands of another person, is anathema to the Doctor. With control comes the ability to trust in the outcome. At least once when C was still human, the Doctor is widely believed to have voluntarily relinquished control, and this may have led to everything descending into chaos and reinforced Doc's focus and desire to grasp and maintain control. The Doctor's history as a human is badly documented because the first world that C conquered was her native planet. C subsumed it and turned it into an abstract world, just like C would with the others, and this process both destroyed the original world and allowed her to recreate and idealize the world in the abstract realm. During the process, the Doctor processed her birth certificates, medical records, educational documentation and certification, marriage certificates and others, and decided not to recreate them in physical worlds for those who knew her to inspect. Whether this is because C sees no need to, or because C never recreated them in the abstract world to begin with, is uncertain. His spouse possesses the title of Imperial Spouse. C is not known to have manifested anywhere, however it is understood that C resides in the abstract world. In the longer term, whether the Doctor's change from human to post-human was as successful as it could have been is unknown. It is not known either what the longer-term effect of this will be for the Doctor. The Doctor is a largely passive individual when not busy developing or adding to her territory, unlikely to start quarrels or fights. However, C does like to convey information and be at the center of things. C has been known to demonstrate a sense of humor while not working, and can come across as benign during these times. Doc is capable of knowing a person's interests before they have even met, as C possesses the ability to communicate with the use of psionics. This leads her to be able to speak their language and swiftly develop a relationship with them that leaves the person enthralled to her. The Doctor uses this to employ and deploy people as champions or disciples, especially in the early stages of a multiverse's conquest, where the Doctor is not yet powerful enough to attack directly. Beyond this, when her disciples' work becomes hard or tedious, the Doctor has the relational savvy to encourage them effectively. Regarding communication in the other direction, humans find it difficult to relate to the Doctor. While humans and the Doctor have the same basic conceptions and survival instincts, that is largely where the similarities end. A person trying to communicate with the Doctor is on a par with a bacterium trying to communicate with a human, if such a thing were ever to occur. The Doctor's true form is widely thought to be impossible for humans to grasp, given her eldritch characteristics, so it is only her projection, which complies with 3 dimensions and maintains a humanoid shape, that humans are capable of interpreting well enough to even attempt to communicate with. The Doctor is known for having an apparently photographic memory. Just as when C was a human, C is possessive towards knowledge and gathers it greedily. C is also possessive towards material objects. Doc maintains a territory, but it is difficult to know what happens deep within it. This territory is under the Doctor's firmer control deep within than at the edges. Although observers cannot be sure how the Doctor manages the people and objects deep within her territory, her keen use of her memory implies that the Doctor prefers to maintain stringent control over her territory. The Doctor is known for continuing to fine-tune the variables of her plan until everything is perfect. For the Doctor, perfection entails an idyllic outcome for herself, her empire, and her disciples. C takes pride in fulfilling her duties, with particularly satisfying tasks including building stable regions within her territory and toppling regions not under her control with shocking displays of violence. Her attitude to getting her work done is so single-minded that the welfare of people doesn't enter the equation, so the Doctor will stabilize or add to her territory without regard for the people who may be in the way. While the Doctor doesn't so much affiliate with others as single-handedly spearheads the optimization of the world, according to the Doctor's idea of optimization at least, C does see some individuals as obstructive to her progress. Just as C did as a human, the Doctor quickly adopts an us and them view of such people. Unfortunately, given the Doctor's control over the people within here territory, and here lack of control of those outside of it, people outside of his sphere of influence are them, and the Doctor is merciless in dealing with them, especially insofar as they appear to be holding back the advancement of the human species. Although the Doctor's control of humans is total deep within here territory, it is partial at the edges or in recently acquired areas. Humans who do not align with the Doctor's vision due to retaining their autonomy and goals, and where those goals fail to align with her own, are the them that the Doctor treats so balefully. Where individuals are fundamentally different enough from the Doctor that C cannot bring their goals into alignment with her talent for influence, C will clash with that individual, and needless to say, the outcome will be far more in the Doctor's favour than in the individual's. It is guessed by some, especially by opposition parties, that the Doctor deliberately works in such a way as to hide any mistakes C makes. This makes her appear self-confident, so C is never seen to doubt herself. Given the Doctor's extra existential nature, it may be that C tweaks things beyond the abstract world to ensure that no mistakes happen, or become apparent if they do. C may also use her capacity to influence humans to prepare the physical world so that the processed, abstract world is all the more perfect. Much like a photographer adjusting a shot to reduce the amount of post-production work to be done, which can achieve a more natural result. The Doctor appears to have a ritual for when C has made a mistake, or perhaps it would be better described as a behavioural anchor. C berates herself. Given how removed the Doctor now is from the human population into which C was born, this may be a way of anchoring herself to that, of humanizing herself. This happens when the Doctor does not appear to have made a mistake. Many people find this disturbing given the power the Doctor wields and the implications of an entity that powerful being fallible. In truth, it is the Doctor's way of avoiding appearing or becoming arrogant, as C remains conscious of her image and does not want to appear to become arrogant even when things appear to be going in her favour. The Doctor's unique perspective on the physical world allows her to see both the vast breadth of the omniverse and not only observe, but actively keep track of, all of the fine details happening from one moment to the next within each universe. This equips her extremely well to administer the universes as C sees fit. The Doctor continued to have children after ascending, and C almost certainly raised them differently to the way he raised his children prior to ascension. Despite the ultimate control that the Doctor appears to have over everything, C demonstrates a drive that suggests that C is acting at the wishes of someone or something else. This is hard to determine given the Doctor's fine-tuned skill of withholding information even via body language or facial expression, but it is suspected. The truth of the matter is that the Doctor has seemingly always had a drive for perfection. It can be said to be an external force, assuming it was a learned behaviour. However, considering the abnormalities that the Doctor is believed to have had during young childhood, it may be genuinely native to her. If it was or is a learned behaviour, then, given the Doctor's talents for using available resources for her benefit and her contrasting desire to neutralise detrimental influences, C may very well have made a deliberate effort to harness it and to ensure that her perfectionism never worked against her. On the other hand, those closest to the Doctor insist that an external force is indeed controlling or powerfully influencing her. Perfectionists often specifically find celebration difficult, and this may be a clue as to the Doctor's ingenuity in successfully harnessing her perfectionism. The Doctor has always been capable of celebrating and enjoying her successes. At times, C can be observed celebrating even though victory does not seem to have been achieved yet. Given her ability to keep track of the omniverse, The Doctor is able to see the wider picture and tell whether or not C has succeeded in a given campaign before anybody else. So here celebrations and other signs that the job is done are a reliable indicator of here victory. C may also have carried over the habit of celebrating successes from here human life. As a human, many variables were outside of here control, so C learned to express gratitude for here successes along with the fruits of here labours or the demonstration of upward mobility that this implied. The Doctor has no reason to believe that C will ever pass on here responsibilities to any other entity, as C is effectively immortal with indefinitely ongoing responsibilities. C is enthusiastic about her career anyway, so will likely never retire. The Doctor still has much to do to fully convert the Omniverse into an abstract counterpart. What C does with the final results, or even how much longer it will take, is impossible to know and difficult to speculate on. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and be sure to share it on your social media. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss a single video. Custom-made character profile videos like this one are available on a commission basis, so if you'd like one, be sure to email me. I'd also like to say thank you to my Patreon supporters, to White Shadow and to Feroth. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.